Okay, well, we have reason to be pretty happy, I think. There's several things that are happening, and the two things that matter most for Tesla investors, right? This movement in FSD and movement with Optimus. So first, earlier this week, we had quite a bit of news updates in Europe, and it's going really well there. It looks like you got Spain approving Tesla's FSD nationwide, but it's only just 19 cars, no safety driver required though, and it's all the public roads, so that's great. Germany, France, and Italy, they started yesterday inviting the public for free FSD supervised passenger rides in Berlin, Paris, Milan, Rome, and we're getting a ton of users dropping videos, and so far it's all been very flawless, very exciting. It proves that Tesla FSD works in these countries. And French media picked it up, and they're starting to talk about it as well. There's even this driver's license rules in 2025 that is new, that requires knowledge of ADAS in theory and practical tests. This will become mandatory by 2029, and so that's EU-wide. Looks like that Tesla's hiring for FSD sort of safety operators in Austria, so that should be coming out there shortly as well. And then today, just now, we had Optimus being demoed at the Neuro IPS conference, and then Tesla just dropped a video of the Optimus Bot running close to even up to 7 miles per hour. This 2 to 3 meters per second. So that's all fantastic news. Alexandra, what you're thinking about? What have you been thinking about these FSD demo drives in Europe? Have you seen them?
I've seen them, and it's very exciting because Europe has been waiting so long. So I mean, it's wonderful. They're going from AI to version 14.2.1. I mean, how about, what a jump. I mean, it really looks like us in the US, who were the guinea pigs for Europe to finally get it at its best stage, which is perfect. I really like that. And I just want to also mention, because about 10 days ago, I shouted out that I will help now spreading the news how we retail investors and Tesla owners can help with regulators and legislators. And I've reached out to Tesla because obviously I don't want it to do any misstep. I don't want to, write to the wrong regulators or legislators or do something that could become harmful. And I've not heard back from them. So it's not as if I'm not working on it. It's just I want to make sure we get the right instructions before we spread them in all the different countries. We've set up, one of my followers was very good in already setting up a short questionnaire, and then the automated letters would pop up and whatever. But like I said, we have to coordinate this with Tesla before we send it out. So just be a little bit patient. And I really think this is the moment to push in all countries around the globe, and we'll do it. We'll help do it, right?
Okay, are you talking about the change.org petition in Europe? Because Elon did ask for people to sign it. According to Florian Minderop, there's now 15,000 signatures. Is that what you're referring to, or something even bigger?
Well, that one was already en route a couple of weeks ago. That's great, and that's going in the right directions. But they also want us to write to certain legislators and certain regulators, the equivalent to Congress here or NAFTA here. So that's going to be more precise. There are certain countries like the Netherlands where it's already well advanced, and there are names to be put in there. It's a huge puzzle. It's a huge puzzle. And then so change.org is great because that's an easy thing to do. The next one is going to be a little bit more complicated, and that's why the preparation takes a bit more time.
Gotcha. And Jeff, I was talking to Joe Backty about it, and he thinks that engaging all of the consumers to actually see it, watch it in videos, to hearing about it in Europe streets, that actually matters. That is more than the government per se. It can move government changes, even though we keep hearing that Europe is just incredible, it's just regulatory is just too much.
Well, no, the demo drives are going to be of enormous importance. It's a question of how many people can you reach and how quickly. The video that, watching a video on your phone or your computer in a two-dimensional view is one thing, but actually feeling the movement of the car and seeing the wheel turn, with nobody touching it, and seeing how the car drives, how stable it is, and how it's making these decisions so quickly. I mean, again, I've gone from it being like something to assist and something to help me to, I think it drives better. And I feel like I'm a good driver, knock on wood. And I feel a lot of people are good drivers, but knowing that a computer is at the helm the entire time, and then you're the backup, whereas before it's kind of like you're primary and this thing's an assist. Right now, it feels like more of the human is the assist, and the computer is in control and making good decisions. Now, we are seeing information too, to the contrary. It's just it's less and less severe in terms of the nature of the defect, and the frequency is less, and that's what you want to see when you have a system that's getting this close to production worthiness and mass production. Getting out of the quote unquote beta stage, which is now in the supervised stage, getting out of that stage into unsupervised. You want a lower frequency of defects, and you want the defect severity rate to go down. And both of those things are happening. But again, it's not zero yet. But I don't think any system is at zero, this complexity. So it's exciting. We're watching the Tesla's new businesses scale, right in front of our eyes. And so we're seeing it now in the United States and a few other select countries, and others are going to be able to experience it soon. And this is their next major source of, right now, most of the revenue is coming from cars. The second amount of revenue is coming from energy. And then now you're going to have the software side of the business, which is very high gross margin, now generating a lot more of the revenue.
I saw somebody say that FSD revenue by itself is not going to move the needle. It's obviously going to be the driverless robotaxi that will do it. But I think what they're forgetting is that FSD, if it's this good, and number one, it's global, not just the US. I think you were the one that pointed out that it's only a certain percentage of cars that is able, when they're referring to the 10%, 12%, that's only a very small percentage of cars. Now it's global, and then eventually be more cars, but also it's going to drive more car sales. That is the bigger move. Can you speak a little bit to that?
Yeah, and I think Tesla believes this too, and they're putting their money behind it. Their plans for capacity expansion. So again, it's one thing to install the machines in the factory. It's another thing to hire the people to run those machines. It's another thing to qualify those machines. It's another thing to get the material on order. Once you get the material on order, you incur liability. That's a big thing. That's a big deal in a company. So I just want to let people understand the distinction, because I hear a lot of people say, well, Tesla's already had this capacity, but they haven't had the demand to fill it. And I guess what I'm telling you is that that's part of the answer. The other part of the answer is, once they commit to actually start ordering that supply, you'll know that they've got great visibility and great confidence in their demand. We're seeing something happening in China, and we're seeing something happening in Europe. Now we're starting to see certain countries poking through. Again, I would be very wary of single month data, whether it's good, super good, or super bad. But because there's an actual supply chain logistics story pretty much behind all of this. But what you want to see is the relative improvement go up. So if it's a November this year, you look at a November last year, and as long as there's not a special situation this year or a special situation last year that amped the number up higher or lower. So that's why you have to be careful with the annual comparisons too, because there's something invariably behind the numbers. Like comparing to a Q1, Tesla honestly took most of their capacity offline in Q1 to change over to the Model Y. So, I mean, long story short, it should drive more car sales. I think what Tesla has to seek out and find is, what are people willing to pay? Because the $99 a month for many turns into the biggest subscription that's in their household potentially. And you have mortgage payment, you have car payment, you have these various utility bills, and then you have these elective subscriptions of what do I want for entertainment. And so I think Tesla needs to search and find what that is. Maybe it is this price, maybe it's higher, I don't know. And the other thing of it, I think though, one thing that could alter that and change it too is when this crosses over into the realm of like this is going to prevent a catastrophe in my family or with my friends. If I have this engaged, that this could help me avoid a catastrophe that also has nonlinear impact on what people are willing to pay.
Are there any signs, like if it's, Elon said that we're going to increase production by 50% for next year. And now that we've solved autonomy, I feel confident we can do this, he said. Is there any signs we can be looking out for to see if that is actually happening? Because you did say that, they need to start investing and building ahead of time.
Yeah, you would. It's messy because Tesla's got a lot of suppliers for the Model Y because of its run rate. It's the biggest single model run rate of any car, or right up there with, I think, a Toyota model. So it'll be messy. Like in the smartphone world, there are people that literally have vast intelligence networks within the supply chain, and as orders get cut and things change, that signal goes directly to Wall Street. I'm telling you that a lot of those signals, I would say at least half of them are wrong. And a lot of and when I say they're wrong, they're just misinformed, because that supplier is only one piece of it, and they could be getting thrown out for a number of different reasons. So, but I am a believer in that data. It just, you have to look at it in a way that you can't just take it blindly, I guess. The other thing too is, Q1 is seasonally a tough quarter, so I'm not expecting the massive Q1. I'm expecting Tesla to focus Q1 on ramping the Cybercab supply chain, because all those parts would be in production in Q1 for a Q2, for an April start of production. All of those parts, a lot of the Cybercab electromechanical, electrical are in ramping now. So I think its short answer is Q1 is going to be a little bit of a mixed bag in those signals. But yeah, you should probably start seeing it later in Q1 and Q2. You should start hearing more activity, seeing Tesla, seeing the parking lot, things starting to fill up. You should start being able to see more of that if that is true and coming to fruition.
Thanks, Jeff. Omar, we're talking about all the updates with FSD around the world, globally. I went through the list of Netherlands, Spain, Germany, France, Italy, testing out this passenger rides. Passengers able to test it. What's any comment on what you've been seeing so far with Tesla's FSD being tested around the world, especially Europe?
Yeah, it's really cool to see people in some European countries getting able to try FSD. They've been blown away. I think this is going to create a new level of support on the ground for getting the approval of this technology through. And I think things are looking pretty good. I think Europeans felt hopeless for a long time, just kind of in the dark about everything that's going on the regulatory side. When are they going to get to try FSD supervised? But now Tesla's outlined a plan with an exemption in early 2026 from Dutch authorities to actually bring FSD supervised to Europe in 2026. So I think that's going to be really exciting. We saw the launch in South Korea. I think they could be adding dozens of new countries for FSD supervised in 2026. Certainly from a tech perspective, it looks like they can add new countries and adapt to those countries without having to do a ton of extra work. The model just generalizes extremely well. So, there was a piece in the New York Times today, and they said, when we see data like this for self-driving cars in the public health space, if we're trying a new medicine, we stop the trial, right? If it's 90% effective at reducing the disease or reducing crashes, we stop the trial. And You just look at what's happening with FSD. You look at the fact that, for example, if you fall asleep and you can kind of try this, close your eyes, leave one eye open, and just see what the car does. It'll just safely pull over. It can now often see things, react things faster than us. This is not even a technology trend. This is a public health story. And I think that in Europe, they're starting to wake up to the fact that if they don't get this approved, it's just not a good story for the 20,000 Europeans who are killed on the road every year.
Yeah, it's great actually to see that article because the tide is turning. People are saying the right things. So this New York Times, it was a clinician researcher who came out and citing Waymo data, which is great. And she had access to all of Waymo's data and she did the research and she said this data is unequivocal. It is tremendously safe. It can eliminate, if this continues, it could eliminate all deaths according to motor vehicle deaths. And if we, like she said, if we were doing a clinical trial and we saw this great of a safe life-saving, outcome, we would stop the study and already just apply it straight. So this is a great comment, and people are starting to realize that the data is now showing. And thank you to Waymo. Thank you to Waymo for producing and sharing that data. It is very good data. And here's Tesla doing, although, even though Waymo's going 10 countries, 10 cities by the end of by the end of 2026. They have 5 now. They're going to add 5 more, and they've announced 14 more after that. But here's Tesla going South Korea. They've hired new people in Austria. It might be coming there soon. You got Spain, Germany, France, Italy, all testing FSD, and it's working. It's like people are testing it there, and it's working really well. Anybody want else to comment on that? Alexander, Jeff?
I can jump in. I mean, I published on Sunday morning after we had 14.2.1 that autonomy is solved. And I mean, I got lots of likes, but I also got some people saying, no, you can't say that. It's never solved. It's true. It's probably never solved. It's probably going to be a work in progress forever, just because there is always something to improve. But this feels for the first time, in my very prudent view, as a solved solution. I mean, of course it can improve. Solved doesn't mean that there is no improvement, but it means it's ready for prime time. Yeah. And I thoroughly believe that. So obviously it's Tesla's data that will determine when they will give it free, when there won't be any monitors anymore in Austin, when they will let us have more ability to text and drive, or to even do more, sleep, go in backseat, whatever. But this is going to come now. There is no way back. It is so good. Today I drove down to LA and back, no intervention, nothing. Absolutely perfect in all situations. And so and door to door, right? And it seems just so unbelievable how many people are still ignorant, how few of us really only understand. And even now with the free FSD drive, I was driving next to hundreds of Teslas, and I wouldn't say even 10% used FSD. The others were all heavily involved in their steering wheel. So the biggest challenge to me now seems not to get the last improvements done. They will be done. It's to make the world conscious about what's happening.
I think if you think about Tesla's making cyber cabs next year, they wouldn't make those if they didn't have 100% confidence that there's a use for them.
Mm-hmm. I'm looking up this data. I don't know if this is real, but I thought I saw somebody post that Mobileye, did they not announce that they are now moving towards future phases to phase out the LiDAR and go straight to just vision only? Is that real? Because I can't find the actual news on it. Nobody knows about this?
Well, there's a major neural network and deep learning conference happening today in Europe. Tesla is there. They're presenting Optimus. In just about 35 minutes, they're going to be presenting on a foundation model for Optimus. So Mobileye came out very strong against Tesla's end-to-end architecture. They said this is unsafe. Regulators are never going to allow this. This is just a bad idea. And if you have been listening to some of these presentations today in Europe's like I have, well, everybody is converging on end-to-end as the architecture that works. So Mobileye kind of embarrassed themselves with that one, I have to say.
Yeah, it is true. I'm reading it here now. Yeah. So Mobileye is well, it's only one article so far. One space is saying it.
Omar, you know the story much better than I. Was it Mobileye that was together with Dan O'Dowd on the Tesla project in 2015? Was it that combination?
Yeah, so Mobileye is an Israeli company that's now acquired by Intel. They were the original supplier of the autopilot chip to Tesla. So Tesla Autopilot 1 was Mobileye, and Mobileye's product uses Green Hill Software's operating system, Integrity. So Tesla basically decided to abandon Dan O'Dowd and Mobileye and build their own system, and we've obviously seen how that's worked out, but that was, I think, what kind of originally ticked them off and made him say, hey, you can't do this. You need my piece of shit operating system instead of Linux.
And 10 years later, still crying.
Yeah. And then today, Mobileye, it did announce that they are going to a vision-only future. World without LiDAR. Finally, they did it. Took them a while. Okay, just adding Matt. Hey, Matt. Matthew, how are you doing? Matthew, can you hear us? Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, Herbert. Hi, everybody.
Hey. What do you want to talk about?
Well, I finally got FSD 14 on my Highland Model 3, and I had to first drive in it today. I drive a lot in FSD, and usually I pay a lot of attention, but I just got lazy. It just seemed unnecessary to pay attention, and I kind of just zoned out. And after a little while, got a strikeout while driving, and had to drive myself.
Dude. Okay.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's the first time I've got a strikeout in years because I'm always paying attention. But 14.2 is just so lifelike and human-like. It seems almost necessary to almost unnecessary to pay attention. So I would not be surprised if this text value FSD functionality actually is released, at some point in the next month or two.
The unsupervised version. Yeah, it is very, very good. This weekend, obviously the holiday weekend, drove lots of family members everywhere, airports everywhere, and perfect. We went to Vancouver, Canada, came back, nothing. Like you say, it's almost to the point where you're expecting it to do really well. Of course, you need to still be vigilant, but so far it's becoming, I think what you said, Alexander, is kind of true, where we have not heard of a safety critical situation happen in a very long time across the world pretty well at this point, not just the US. So still not, data, the only people who have the data is Tesla. They will know exactly how far away we are from, are we already safe from the human? But yeah, I think that data is showing that I think they last said 7 times safer than the human at this point. So. And then we did see yesterday as well a number of the analysts. They're all talking big again. We had ARK Invest, Wedbush, Cantor Fitzgerald, Deepwater, Stifel. And then today we had TD Cowen, even like investors like Sarah Goh previously from Greylock Partners. They're all coming out saying this is blowing their minds away. So even if it's not quite yet ready for prime time, again, it's got to be, the data's got to show that's, safer than a human. The investors are waking up and realizing, yeah, we're at the last stages of it being completed.
I mean, the way I see it, we're in the last 30 days of supervised
30 days.
FSD. Within 30 days, Tesla is expecting to launch robo-taxis without any safety monitor. So what do you call that when there's a Tesla driving around Austin with nobody inside, whether it's That is a level 5 autonomous robotaxi.
We lost you. I didn't hear what you were saying at all. You said we're 30 days away, and then what did you say?
Oh yeah, I said we're in the last 30 days of supervised FSD. Within 30 days, Tesla's going to remove the safety monitors from their car in Austin. So what do you call that? When you have a car driving around with nobody in it in Austin, whether it's raining or sunny, it doesn't need any pre-mapping. That's a level 5 robotaxi. And once they deploy it in Austin, I see them expanding rapidly to other cities and then bringing it to customer cars in 2026. So we've identified this huge public need now to deploy autonomy around the world. And they're the only company that's really prepared to get millions of these things on the road in short order.
30 days away from unsupervised FSD. But you just said, most of us think that they'll do it in Austin, but, maybe a small number of cars. Do you think that they will do some sort of unsupervised FSD announcement for us regular drivers somewhere in the US?
Yeah, I think that's going to follow in 2026, right? You can imagine if I live in Austin, Texas, and I have a Model Y, and it's the same Model Y that's in the robotaxi service, and the robotaxi is running around without a driver safely, well, then why do you need to nag me to pay attention, right? I should be able to use FSD unsupervised too. And I think that's exactly what they're going to do in 2026.
That makes sense, because it's almost like, well, it is. You are being robotaxied. I wonder if they did that. If you go, okay, I'm going to do unsupervised, I wonder if there's a button that you would have to press to indicate, and then that would then let Tesla, they're just like they would with robotaxi, follow you and be able to communicate with you, be able to see the inside cabin if you give them that permission. Interesting. Yeah, go ahead, Matthew.
Yeah, I mean, when the first Teslas in Austin are unsupervised, I think that means there's no supervisor in the vehicle. There can still be a remote supervisor. If you look at Waymo or Zoox, we don't know what the ratios of remote supervisors to vehicles. Like, is it 1-to-1 ratio? Are there 2 supervisors per car? Is there, 1 supervisor per 2 or 3 cars? So I imagine there will be a short period of time where there'll be like a 1-to-1 remote supervisor. Then it might be a 1-to-2 and 1-to-5 and eventually 1-to-10, or at some point, no remote supervisors. But I mean, there's still going to be some human paying attention, at least a little bit somewhere. I was recently in Vegas and I took one of the Zoox vehicles and it drives incredible. And there's somebody with an Xbox controller, somewhere there ready to take over, or might even park it and unpark it themselves.
Yeah. That makes sense. Okay. And then we also reported that Cybercab production seems to be in progress. Tesla's hiring quality inspectors. That's a good sign. And then there's new data from Waymo report again, saying that 90% of robotaxi trips are 2 passengers or less. So Tesla choosing to make a Cybercab the 2-seater was the right call. So everything's looking like it's all working out exactly the way they thought it would work out so far. Knock on wood. It's good news. And Jeff, anything else to say about the Cybercab production? I know we had a show on Monday, but just curious if again, for that one, how do we know if it's on track? I mean, if it's April, shouldn't we start seeing more and more signs? Like, should we see Cybercabs? We saw some Cybercabs being tested outside of Giga, Texas, actually on the public roads, and we want to see more of that, don't we?
Yeah, typically what Tesla does is they provide a year for production on a new product, and then they provide a half, first half, second half. Then they provide a quarter. And then now you've heard Elon say April at the shareholders meeting. So those are all levels of confidence. This is how, we would do product planning and discuss launch dates with customers when it's super far out and there's a lot of uncertainty in the product, like in the case of Cybercab, you've got to develop a new production system, a new way of designing a car, a way of building it. And of course, you've got to get autonomy working because there's no steering wheel or pedals. So when you have all that uncertainty, you talk in broad terms. As you get closer, the red flag would be as if they're still talking in broad terms. But as they've gotten closer, they've narrowed it down. And even though it is a slip, and we should be very clear that start of production, if Tesla was talking about Cybercab a year ago, start of production was targeted at the end of this year. And that's not uncommon. That's what you do with your teams because you want everybody focused. You want everybody focused on a date that stretches everyone, gets everyone creative. But this is clearly, call it 3-4 months later than that. But the fact that Tesla, as they've gotten closer, they've narrowed in, they've gone from a year to a half to a quarter to now a month, tells me that they've got a lot of confidence. You want to see that. And of course, you want to see it drive through the In-N-Out Burger drive-through because that is the scientific that is the gate passage from prototype to production at Tesla. I like that.
Yeah, that's Tesla's tradition, right? They would take a new car and they would go to In-N-Out Burger, and that's a signal to everybody that they're handing it off to production.
Yeah, it's a signal to the supply chain team. The engineering team thinks they're mostly done, and get your SHIT together and start building, get ready to build.
Technical term. I would. When do you think we'll start seeing more and more Cybercabs on the streets?
Every week. Every week they'll probably, as you approach pilot, you're building more cars because the percent of production tools you're using is increasing in percentage rate. So when you start using more and more production tools, you start producing larger lot sizes. And you start producing larger lot sizes. And the other thing too is as you get later into the prototype cycle prior to production, every group needs to be seated with all of their units to sign off on their area. So if it's the safety group, if it's the reliability group, if it's the crash test group, if it's the group that works on power consumption, everybody needs their final samples to validate performance prior to customers, seeing the final samples. So that's another sign that you'll see more and more of these getting built, and of course the road testing.
Okay, and that'll be very exciting. You guys want to talk about Michael Burry, the famous short